Okay, good morning, everyone. We will get started a few seconds early. Thank you, everyone, for attending with us. I see we have about 20 attendees right now, so that is a great number to start out with. So welcome to the Community Wildfire Preparedness and Mitigation webinar series. My name is Kara Garrett, and I will be the moderator for this whole series. This webinar will last about 30 minutes, and it will be recorded. Please type any questions into the Q&A portion of the screen, and we will answer those as quickly as possible. After our featured speakers have completed their presentation, we will be holding a question and answer session. If you have questions after the webinar hasn't concluded, we will be providing contact information for the programs to allow you to reach out to them directly. All webinar documentation, including the PDF of the presentation you will watch today and the recording of the webinar, will be listed on our website that is posted in the chat. Should you encounter any issues or have any problems at all, please do not hesitate to give me a call or text me at 916-201-5539, and my email is also in the chat as well. So starting today's webinar, we will focus on home hardening and defensible space, and I will now turn it over to our presenters, Assistant Chief Denny O'Neill and Assistant Chief Heather McCauley, to introduce themselves and take it away. So go ahead, Chiefs.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Denny O'Neill. I'm the Assistant Chief of Home Hardening. Chief McCauley, I believe you're on mute.
I apologize. My name is Heather McCauley. I'm the Assistant Chief for the Defensible Space Program. Defensible space is the area adjacent to a structure where wildfire prevention or protection practices are implemented to provide defense from an approaching wildfire, burning under average weather conditions, or to minimize the spread of a structure fire to wildlands or surrounding areas. Defensible space is also, in a more layman's term, in essence, the base of your structure out 100 feet in all directions. This space allows your property in the state responsibility area to withstand a wildfire's impact and survive without a fire engine present. The inspection that we do identifies the areas that are susceptible to radiant heat and embers that can damage and possibly destroy your home.
Real quickly, I'll go over what the definition is for home hardening. So home hardening is the term used to describe vegetation management compliance. So typically when we're talking, usually we're talking defensible space. And also the building materials, systems, and our assemblies used in the exterior design, construction, or retrofitting of buildings to resist the intrusion of flames or embers projected by a wildland fire. So when we talk about home hardening can be applied to new houses that are being built or existing non-conforming structures, which are structures that were built before the California WUI codes, which were established in 2008. Home hardening also considers the relationship between the primary residence and its exposure to nearby combustibles. These nearby combustibles create fire pathways that can create an impact to the primary structure. So in the picture there, it's showing a grass fire with low flame lengths that transition to the fence. And you'll notice with the fence that the fire intensity increased, and then the fence fire transitioned to the shed in the upper right. And again, the fire intensity increased and affected the primary house through radiation, direct flame contact, and also through embers. So what is the difference between defensible space and home hardening? They both together, coupled together, help protect your home. So vegetation management is very important, and also what you do to prepare your home through home hardening retrofits reduces the risk to your structure. Next slide.
This is an example of a running wildfire, a before, during, and after. And if your house is home hardened and has that defensible space in place, it really does allow your home to survive standing alone by itself. And that's really what we're looking for when we're doing this home hardening and defensible space, is really trying to make your home as survivable as possible during an approaching wildfire. What does defensible space look like? We're giving examples right here of what a what your property could look like before and after. Cleaned up, picking up all the dead slash, and on the other photo, it shows all that extra vegetation that really doesn't need to be there. That is just a catalyst to get closer to your home and getting that approaching wildfire to impinge on your house.
So in a part of what we're going to talk about today, defensible space and home harden, you can find on our Ready for Wildfire website. It's a great website that puts a whole bunch of stuff together in an easy place to get to help you protect your home. The site we're going to be using today is the Prepare section, and it's under the items of Ready, Set, Go. And today we're going to be talking about the Get Ready side, and we'll be talking about defensible space and also home hardening. Also on this website, there's some opportunities for what to do during the fire, and then also what you would do post wildfire. So there's a lot of good tools and things available from this website. Next slide. From the home hardening section, there's two links that would be very important to you as a homeowner. One is our low-cost retrofit list, and then the other one is going to be a link to be able to get to the State Wildfire Listed Wildland Urban Interface WUI Products Handbook. And the products listed in this handbook have been tested and meet the requirements of Chapter 7A of the California Building Code, which is the material and construction methods for exterior wildfire exposure. Next slide.
Low-cost ways to create defensible space. Regularly clean your roof, gutters, decks, and the base of walls to avoid the accumulation of fallen leaves, needles, and other flammable materials. See our defensible space webpage for more details. We'll have that in the end of the notes, and if you guys go back to look at it. Ensure that all combustible materials are removed from underneath, on top, or within 5 feet of your deck. If you can see all the extra material in your gutters, and take a look under your decks, and anything that's flammable that could cause a fire under your house, you want to make sure that you find a new location for that. Here's a good example of what we're looking at for that zone 0. We want to remove vegetation or other combustible materials that are within 5 feet of windows and glass doors. Replace wood mulch products within 5 feet of all structures with non-combustible products such as dirt, stone, or gravel. If you take a look of these pictures before and after, you see the large trees right up against the house. We really don't want that. That would be a direct flame content onto your house. If you push those out 10 to 20 feet and space them apart, they would be a great ornamental bush for your house, but right up against your house, you're really making your home susceptible to catching fire more easily, not only with embers, but actually direct flame content. Also, with all the ornamental landscaping around your home, that's also ways for the embers to get into your house, and you want to pull those apart, and either that or relocate them. Some nice stone, gravel, or other ideas can help make your house look just as nice, but a little more safe during an approaching wildfire. Next slide. Low cost ways more. If you remove all dead or dying grass, plants, shrubs, trees, branches, leaves, weeds, and pine needles within 30 feet of all structures or to the property line. Ensure exposed firewood is stored at least 30 feet away from structures or completely covered in a fire-resistant material that will not allow embers to penetrate. Additionally, make sure you have 10 feet of clearance around your wood pile. If you notice these pictures before and after on the top, just a little mitigation and clearing that out is really going to make that that structure there more fire resistant and be able to withstand a fire. And don't have your wood piles so close or create fencing out of it, because you're just creating more heat close to your house that creates embers and really does that direct flame contact onto your structure. Be sure to store combustible outdoor furnishings away from your home when not in use. Remember to properly store retractable awnings and umbrellas when not in use so they do not collect leaves and embers. If you look above, we're not asking you to not have anything on your decks, just when you're not using them, to put them in a safe place so that they don't become a problem when an approaching wildfire happens. Fire resistant landscaping is a huge factor in keeping your house fire safe. You can do some really great ideas, plants and gravel mixture, and some really nice fire resistant types of materials that you can use in place of the more susceptible shrubs and bushes that could easily catch fire.
All right, so now I'm going to talk about some low-cost ways to harden your home. And again, the low-cost list is a comprehensive list that was put together that won't cost that much money, that are things that you can help reduce the risk around your house. Number one is when it's time to replace your roof, replace it with a Class A rated roof. So typical roofs that have a Class A rating that have been tested and meet a certain standard are metal, tile, cement, and all those Class A roofs have a life cycle. So those roofs are made to last a certain amount of time, and after a certain period of time, they start to deteriorate. And when they deteriorate, they can cause problems and allow openings to where embers or fire can get in and start your roof on fire. And the most common type of roof is an asphalt roof. And as you start losing those shingles as the roof gets older, make sure that you replace that roof. And when you do that, make sure you talk to a licensed contractor or your local building official and make sure that that roof is a Class A rated roof. The other part of your roof is you want to make sure that there's no openings that are available for either rodents or debris to get into, and create an opening for embers or fire to light that debris on fire and again catch your roof on fire. So the picture in the bottom right shows the proper thing that you should do with the bird stops on the left, where it's been mudded in with a non-combustible product. And then on the right, you see the openings that's bad, where things can get in and you can have your roof catch on fire. So the other thing is we talked about, Chief McCauley talked about the debris getting into your gutters. What you could also do is get a non-combustible gutter cover to go over the top of it to help make sure that that debris doesn't get into the gutter in the first place. And again, as the gutter catches, or if you have debris in your gutter and it catches on fire either by embers or direct flame, it can impinge upon your roof covering and start your roof on fire. The other item is to cover your chimney and stovepipe outlets with non-combustible corrosive resistant metal mesh screen, which is known as a spark arrestor, with 3/8 inch to 1/8 inch openings. And again, that's to make sure that if you do have a fire in your fireplace, that embers don't get out and start either your roof on fire or vegetation next to your house and start a fire that leaves your house. So the other big thing is we know 60 to 90% of houses that burn down, it's because of embers. And so we always recommend that be on the top of your list. And there's a whole bunch of different ways to help address that. There is now, with Chapter 7A of the California Building Code, or WUI guidelines, there are some rated vents. And what we're referring to here is if you go to that, the products guide, the Office of State Fire Marshal Wild and Urban Interface Products Handbook, it will have some vendors that actually have vents that have been tested to be compliant. If you don't get that type of vent, you also can use non-combustible corrosive resistant mesh. That's a minimum of 1/16 of an inch, and it doesn't exceed 1/8 of an inch in diameter. The other thing that you want to do is caulk and plug gaps greater than 1/8 of an inch around exposed rafters and blocking to prevent ember intrusion into the attic or other enclosed spaces. So again, that is a pretty typical spot for embers to get into, and you want to try and help inhibit those embers not getting into your attic. So the other big thing with your siding, it's easy to do, is to get in there and plug all the holes that may be there where embers or flames could intrude into the inside of your house and start your house on fire. So you want to inspect all areas and caulk with a fire caulking and plug all gaps or other holes that are greater than 1/8 of an inch. So in the picture, you can see where a woodpecker had actually gotten on the side of the house and created some holes. And then the other picture on the upper right is where a rodent got in And you could see all the debris that's left that would be an easy source for embers to catch on fire. The other thing is to install weather stripping to gaps greater than 1/8 of an inch between garage doors and door flames to prevent ember intrusion. So if you look at the picture at the bottom, you can see all those openings where if you have wind and embers, those embers could easily get in between those cracks and get into your garage where most people have a lot of flammable materials. So, and there's a lot of different techniques to be able to plug those gaps. So the other thing is your window is a vulnerability, and we want to make sure that we don't have any combustible material anywhere around your windows. And then if you have an older home, you can always upgrade to Chapter 7A California Building Code compliant window. One of those windows is a double pane. One of those panes would be tempered glass. The other thing that you can do is when it's time to replace your siding or deck, use a compliant, non-combustible, ignition resistant, or other off of the State Fire Marshal WUI compliant product. And if you can't replace all of your siding, at a bare minimum, replace the siding on the sides of your house that are would be most impacted by a fire. We also know that the bottom 6 inches to 2 feet is where embers usually accumulate. So that would be your first place to target if you don't have money to replace all of your siding. The other vulnerability is skylights. So in the summer, it's hot and people leave their skylights open. So we recommend adding a metal mesh screen with openings in the screen not to exceed 1/8 of an inch. So that way, if you forgot to close your skylights before you leave to evacuate a fire, that mesh has the potential to be able to help not let embers get into your house. The other thing is decks. If you have a deck that's made of combustible material, we recommend putting in some sort of either metal or ignition resistant material in between the deck and your house so that if the deck catches on fire, it'll provide a little bit of protection from that fire getting to your house. So there's two things that I'm going to talk about next that aren't on the low cost risk list that we also know can be a significant hazard to your house. One is your fence and the other one is sheds. And so I'm going to talk about those, and they're not low cost. They potentially could cost a little bit more money, but if you have these, then you should make a plan to be able to get these things fixed in the future. So when we talk about fences, fences can be a direct path from a fire outside of your parcel, hitting that fence, the fence catches on fire and then travels next to your house. Firefighters have known for a long time. Also, research observations have seen where fences transitioning to the house have caught your house on fire. There's also been a lot of research done on when fences burn, what is the impact to the house? So if you have a combustible fence that's attached to your house, especially when it's near a window or where you have open rafters or where you have combustible siding, that's a pretty major vulnerability. And we recommend replacing at least 5 feet with a non-combustible product. And you'll see in the picture at the top, they replaced more than 5 feet with a non-combustible chain link fence with metal slats in it. The other potential significant hazard is sheds. And there's been a lot of research done on the impacts of burning sheds against your structure. And your structure could be very vulnerable, especially if that shed is close to windows, combustible sidings, or open eaves. So we recommend that you either remove the sheds from near your house or relocate them. And on the sheet here, we provided some estimated distances that your shed should be away from your primary residence and your neighbors. So you wouldn't want to move the shed away from your house and then put it next to your neighbor's house as a general guide to how far away those sheds should be. And then research has also found that if you do have to have a shed, it's better to have a steel shed. It's going to be less flammable than a combustible shed. And then the worst type of shed is to either have a plastic or composite shed, which are highly flammable. And we really want to make sure that those aren't anywhere near our house. So in conclusion, we provided you guys a list of some low-cost things that you can do to help reduce the risk to your house. Thanks for attending this presentation.
Thank you very
Perfect.
much.
Thank you, Chiefs. So we will open it up to questions for the next few minutes. If anyone has any additional questions.
Don't forget to check out the resources below that we've attached for the Ready for Wildfire. We also have our Defensible Space website that has great information. It has self-assessments in there for you, where you can do it for fire resistant landscaping, home hardening, and defensible space. It asks questions and then gives you suggestions and ideas. And also that Ready for Wildfire, like Chief O'Neill said, is a great place to start. It does the Ready, Set, Go, which goes into evacuations and how to prepare and prevent prevention options for if a fire is coming.
Thank you. Okay, and we do have one person with their hand up, so I'm going to unmute you. I have Kay Gaffrey. Go ahead.
Great.
Hey, I work for the city of Encinitas in San Diego County. I worked for a number of years for County Fire down here in conjunction with CAL FIRE. One of the issues is that, new construction, it's great. There's building code requirements for new construction via Chapter 7A. Unfortunately, Chapter 7A does not apply to remodels, additions, things of that nature. So that's one component. The other component is, again, the fire threat to new construction is definitely less than to older construction that hasn't been retrofitted. And for many of these homeowners, there is a cost issue there with retrofitting your homes. Couple things. When I was at County Fire, we worked with the county building division to further strengthen the county building code, which is much more stringent than Chapter 7A. One of the things that makes it more stringent is the fact that it does apply to remodels, additions, modifications to existing homes. The other opportunity I had when I worked for County Fire was I was a part of the Sunrise PowerLink Grant Committee. Sunrise PowerLink is an electrical transformation or a transforming line that runs from Far East County into metropolitan areas, met with quite a bit of resident opposition. So SDG&E developed a 58-year program to fund defensible space and structure hardening improvements to homes in that corridor. As a part of the committee, we received the applications, we reviewed them and awarded grant funding on an annual basis. When we saw the incredible impact that retrofitting vents has, we even developed a special component. Basically said, if you apply for the funds for the vents, you're going to get the grant funding no matter what. So just a couple things there. Personally, I think the state can do a lot. As far as the code requirements, those code requirements should be strengthened and they should apply to remodels, additions, existing homes. And number two, you see a lot of articles about, legislation and bills and millions of dollars being thrown at the wildfire problem. But in my opinion, one of the most effective, if not the most effective thing the state can do is develop grant programs. You do it on a regional basis, however you see fit, break it down to where it's not this, uncontrollable thing, but develop grant programs that are real, where people can actually get money to swap out their vents, swap out windows, siding, things of that nature, take measures to make their homes more fire resistant. There's a lot of talk about the cost of hardening a home or building a hardened home versus a non-hardened home, and studies have shown that there's not that great of an economic difference. And when you look at the economic impact on a community that gets wiped out by a wildfire, you look at Sonoma, you look at Santa Rosa with Coffee Park, that subdivision that was obliterated, that monetary loss of the property tax revenue from the improvements that have been destroyed, et cetera, far outweighs the amount of money it might cost to harden a home and make it safer. So just some thoughts I have. I've done a lot of work in this area. I've done a lot of research in this area. It's something that I'm very passionate about. Having both a building plan check and fire code background. And I know there's a lot more that could be done at a state level to make this a better situation for these residents that live in these areas.
Hey, I can take that one. So thank you very much for your input. You are correct. Chapter 7A, which is the material and construction methods for exterior wildfire exposure, that's a part of the California Building Code, does only address new construction and not retrofitting old. And then you were correct that most of the local jurisdictions do have the ability to amend Chapter 7A to incorporate some sort of retrofitting, especially if you're remodeling more than sometimes 50% of the structure. So you are correct there. That code is on a 3-year triennial adoption cycle. And so I know groups are already looking at the current code and looking at the science, and I'm sure there'll be recommendations for the next code coming up in a couple of years. And then another thing is a part of these presentations we did a home hardening presentation, and I'm sure it'll be on our website. And I talked a little bit about our California Wildfire Mitigation Program. And I'll have my assistant put that website up for the OES. OES's website is very good and gives a brief description of that program, where we're going to be providing grant funds for vulnerable communities and high fire hazard areas. And we're in the pilot program at this point, but we'll be rolling that program out to the whole state in hopefully the future. And then also CAL FIRE has a lot of wildfire prevention grants, and also OES has hazard mitigation funds that are also being used for these types of programs, primarily through local fire safe councils. So again, thanks for your input, and I have my contact information up there, and if there's anything that I missed, feel free to give me a call or contact me.
And Mr. Gaffrey, I just wanted to add my 2 cents. I worked in the land use planning program with the county and CAL FIRE down in San Diego, and you guys have always been very proactive ever since the Pines fire. You guys have been, the whole county has been very proactive, and we really do appreciate it. The focus for CAL FIRE now is a big push for fire prevention, and we always have legislation coming through to improve upon that, and getting the comments and the camaraderie from the public is always welcome, and we appreciate it.
Thank you both for your time today.
Yes, no problem.
Perfect. Thank you, Chiefs. And I do see that there's a question being answered by Justine in the chat right now. Thank you, Justine. And then also Natasha is typing in the answer to the second one. So
Can you read the question?
Yeah, perfect. So Justine, just a heads up, I'm going to read this out loud. So this is from Elizabeth. I have a question about decking material ratings in the guide. Some are rated class A, B, or C, and others are rated SFM 12-7A-4A. What is the difference?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, so I have a question about decking material ratings. In the guide, some are rated class A, B, or C. Others are rated SFM 12-7A through 4A. What is the difference?
Okay, so with the amount of time that we have, what I'll recommend to you is that the Chapter 7A under the building code provides some different options for being able to meet the requirements for ignition resistant decking material. And so the guide that we put out there are products that people or the vendors have voluntarily put onto that product's guide. And so there are some products out there that have been tested that may not show up on that guide. So when you get into the more complex projects such as decks or windows, or even vents, we always recommend that you contact your local building official and use a licensed contractor so that they can help you interpret what the code is and what the options that you have to be able to meet that fire resistant rating.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief. Okay, and then we are at 11:59, so we will take one more. and I see that Justine is also typing for this one, but ADUs are those required to meet the newer requirements? That is the question. So are ADUs required to meet the newer requirements?
So I'll take that one. And I am not 100% sure on that one because ADUs are regulated. In the current code, there's a specific, for chapter 7A, there's the requirement for sizing a certain over 120 square feet requiring a permit, which would require ignition resistant materials. But a lot of the ADUs are regulated by local jurisdictions. So I would recommend on that one that you talk to your local building official and work with them to see their interpretation on if those do trigger chapter 7A.
Perfect. Okay. So we are at 12 o'clock. So now we will take the time to end this portion of the webinar. Again, if you have any questions, that's the contact information. And Chief O'Neill is the Assistant Chief of the Home Hardening Program. So I will adjust that in the PowerPoint and upload the PDF with the correct title. So for our next webinar, that will be held on March 13th, and it will feature our CalSTAPS program. So please join us for that. And then we have one other one in March that will focus on strategic fire plan and unit fire plans. And then in April, we have a summary of the 2022 fires in the Red Book. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And that website at the bottom of this slide is going to house all of the information that we discussed today. So with that, thank you all, and I will go ahead and end this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.